Sangha, thanks a lot for doing this. Really appreciate it, and complete honor to have you on board on Ramiz Speaks. My first question clearly is regarding COVID-19, Sangha, because it's a harsh reality check that how fragile life is. Do you agree?
Yes, it is a harsh reality check, Ramiz, and thank you so much for having me on your show. It's great to see you after such a long time and reconnect. And that is one of the things the whole world is trying to do, isn't it? Through this crisis, to reconnect with a lot of the concepts and the ideals that maybe has got lost to us with time. You know, changes of attitude, the speed of technology, the change of environment of the planet, so on and so forth. But maybe it is a time to reset, stop, rethink, but at the same time also take a pause as to see what is happening around the world, how many people are struggling in our own countries and beyond, and what things we can do in terms of assistance to them so that everyone gets through this time, this difficult time together. You know, it's a strange feeling for everyone. But hopefully this will pass. Unfortunately, there will be a great cost attached to it in terms of life and the economy. But I think still looking forward to the times when we do return to a new normal, that we take our responsibilities, our commitments a little bit more seriously, and in terms of its relevance, impact to ourselves and also to the planet.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Sangha, that, you know, sadly it had to take a pandemic for us to see how badly placed the world was regarding priorities, because zillions were being spent on killing people and zilch on saving lives.
Yeah, it just goes into perspective, doesn't it? Preparedness, the ability to anticipate pandemics such as this or other crises, and really pull together as a world community to try and solve these issues. Time and time again, we see that in times of crisis, people put aside differences and they come together. And hopefully this will be another case, but hopefully beyond this crisis, the lessons learned will stay with us, then we won't forget, because we always have a very short memory, don't we, Ramiz? You know, and everything's going well. Yeah. You know, we go overboard, and then when everything goes badly, that's the time suddenly we look around for support. But yeah, it's a strange time, Ramiz. But I think, you know, for families, for individuals, for world leaders, for everyone, for communities, I think it's a great time to reflect and really make some new, not just resolutions, but commitments, real proper commitments and life changers, so that we come out better.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Sangha, and I want to have your view on it. Will the game change after this pandemic? You know, what are we looking at from cricket point of view?
Well, it's very hard to say. I mean, to really imagine cricket coming back over the next few months in the same way and form that we're used to is not viable. It's not realistic. It'll take a long time for full stadiums, for people to feel confident enough to congregate together, to support this wonderful sport that we love, or any other sport or any other social gathering. So habits will change, unless of course there is a vaccine or there is confirmed immunity once you've already fallen sick with the coronavirus. But we have to wait and see. But it'll be probably a new reality for a lot of sports persons around the world, at least for another year or so, until we really come to grips and understand this disease and its impact a lot better. I think what we've seen is that everyone's playing catch up almost, and there are new learnings every day about how this disease affects people in terms of their health, but also in terms of life habits, in terms of going about and regaining normalcy. So we really will have to wait and see. I don't think anyone's really put their finger on it now, but one thing we can say for sure is that definitely there will be changes.
Yeah, and Sri Lanka seem to have coped with it rather smartly, because I was looking at the numbers, and out of all the subcontinent or the Asian bloc, Sri Lankans have played their cards quite smartly.
Well, up to now, I think the government measures in terms of the lockdown, in terms of closing the borders, in terms of getting the importance of social distancing out there, ensuring that the government organizations, the tri-forces, the police forces are all acting together and responsibly trying to ease the burden on the country and its citizens, is paying dividends. The medical community as well has been very, very proactive, but at the same time, no system is perfect. And the longer you extend lockdowns, the longer it takes for you to come out of a lockdown and reopen the economy, because the reopening of any of these restrictions will carry with it a risk of further infection, a second, third wave maybe. But at what point do we draw the line? So it has to be a continued combined effort between the public, between all the government agencies and everyone who's involved in this fight, to really understand what each other's responsibilities are, and then commit to living with that and committing to that responsibility. I think that's one of the most important things. The other thing that I think Sri Lanka requires continuously is more and more extensive testing to understand the spread of this disease, where this disease is headed in our community, and then of course which vulnerable communities or hotspots that we need to isolate, who can get back to work, so on and so forth. So this is just the start, I think, of the marathon. But the procedures in place have worked pretty well. But to have them really take root and have a lasting, longer impact, I think there's a lot more to be done. But then, of course, for countries like Sri Lanka, with the economies that we have, it gets more and more difficult, Ramiz, to stay in lockdowns for longer. And the economic fallout will also have to be assessed. And recoveries in terms of that will also have to be put in place.
Absolutely right. Pakistan is seeing that tussle between a lockdown and how to restart the economy. And it's not an easy thing, because people don't get used to spending money. They're a little afraid and apprehensive walking out in the street and to a mall or a bazaar and, buying stuff. So I think it'll take a bit of time getting used to, once again, engaging with people and going out there and feeling a bit safe. Now,
I don't think this particular scenario was in any economic textbook. So I mean, in 2008 is a very pale comparison to this. So it's a whole new world for everyone, I think.
So absolutely right. Now, I was going through your stats, Sangha, and it would have taken me 25 minutes alone on discussing how brilliant your career has been. I mean, it's a treasure for statisticians. I mean, and congratulations, because I went through every little detail, and it is quite astonishing what you have achieved. So once again, many congratulations. We'll get to that a little later. But right now, let's talk a little bit about MCC, and you're heading MCC. You are the first non-British to head MCC, and you were here in Pakistan, and you're voicing your opinion regarding relaunching of cricket in Pakistan. You came here with an MCC team. You played a couple of matches in my old school, HSN College. Though people tell me that you're more keen in playing golf than playing cricket, but that's for other platform. But I mean, you got the first-hand experience of how passionate people are here in Pakistan and what it would mean for them if cricket is properly relaunched here.
Absolutely. Ramiz, it was a strange feeling, thinking of coming back to Pakistan. Not because I had any doubts or fears, but there always seems to be something in the back of your mind that says, is this the right time? Is this the right decision? Not just for me personally, but also for my family, my children. So I had many opportunities to come back to Pakistan in various ways. But when we were kind of floating this idea of having an MCC tour to Pakistan after such a long time, it was very, very imperative that we did it for the right reasons, that we did it understanding the ground realities in Pakistan, the giant strides it has made to have cricket come back and for touring teams to be safe. And of course, understanding the passion of the Pakistani cricketing supporters and the need for players, amazing, talented, magnificent players of Pakistan, to have that ability to play in front of their home crowds. It is necessary for their well-being in terms of their skill and emotional well-being as well, for the fans to see their heroes and the cricketers they admire from abroad to come and play in front of them, and for the PCB and its financial health and well-being that cricket does come back to Pakistan. And safety has always been the prime concern. Let's really be honest about it, Ramiz, after what's happened in 2009. And I saw through Wasim Khan's presentation to MCC, to the World Cricket Committee, all the efforts taken by the PCB, the regional government, and the government under the Prime Minister, His Excellency Imran Khan, to have this tour come about and to have international cricket come back to Pakistan. When I landed in Lahore, the feeling, I thought I'll be having a few doubts, fears, or a little bit of anxiety, but there was none of that. The security was professional. It was not overwhelming. It was not in your face. It never inconvenienced us. But you saw that they handled things superbly. So we felt very safe and very secure. Of course, you had your bulletproof buses because those were requirements. You had your complete armed military escort. You had a city almost shut down in terms of areas that they covered to ensure safe passage of the pass. We got to the hotel, the Pearl Continental, one of the nicest hotels I've ever stayed at. Brilliant. I still remember it from that time in 2009 and before. And then to the ground, the Gaddafi Stadium, 18,000 people there for the first game. And it was like a homecoming, especially for me. And I felt very proud and very happy, very safe, and very grateful for the hospitality of the Pakistani cricket fan, the PCB, and the players. And we had a wonderful, wonderful tour. Having said that, Ramiz, MCC coming there was the first step. The next step is to have more and more international cricket teams coming down countries. And for me, the real breaking of this cricket hoodoo, I would say, is to have Australia or England tour.
I think that's the litmus test. Absolutely.
That is the litmus test. And maybe 3 to 5 test matches at a stretch may not be possible at the start, but why not 2? Why not 3 one-dayers? Why not start with 40 20s? Something of the sort to kickstart this process, because we really need Pakistan to be strong, to have cricket in Pakistan, to have the fans and the players playing in Pakistan. I think that is essential for the strength of world cricket as well. And your college, Aitchison College, is one of the most magnificent facilities and schools I've ever visited in my life. I mean, the hospitality we got, the environments of the school, and the fact that you have 100 horses. You would have had a very spoiled upbringing, Ramiz, knowing that. 100 horses for the students in the school.
I'm afraid I've got to agree with you, Sangha. But they were tough on you generally to make sure that you towed the line. And but it is a great institution, and it's carried on with a lot of history. You know, the history in the 1890s, horse riding, and it's a sprawling school as well. So, I mean, thanks for visiting it, actually, because that pavilion and that cricket ground is so British in nature, and must have sat well with the MCC members, I'm sure.
Not just MCC. I mean, even the school I went to, Trinity College in Kandy, it reminds me a lot of Trinity College as well. Trinity is a sprawling campus, huge. We had a international test cricket ground as our school ground. So I played school cricket as well as international cricket on that same ground. So I understand, you know, the kind of, you know, going to Aitchison College was very nostalgic.
I mean, and actually, Sangha, I mean, that attracted me to the game because I was in that school for a very long period, and all I could do, because in the classroom that I had, my seat was in next to the window that was overlooking the cricket ground, and so I wasn't really paying attention to the studies. I was just looking at the cricket ground and wanted to be out there because cricket was compulsory from 2 till 4. You had to pick a sport or couple of sports really every day of the week.
Isn't it strange, Ramiz, that when I was growing up, all the coaching manuals and the coaching methods were very, very English in nature, very British, right?
Yeah.
And we were brought up on that stock standard technical excellence, the purity of the English technique, and this is how you played cricket. And more England has started looking for the Asian influences in the sport, the dashers, the cricketers with panache, the flexible wrists, sometimes we overlook our own amazing talents that we have been given by God at birth. So I always laugh when I think back how the games have changed and how countries have progressed in terms of their mindsets.
Sangha, are you happy with how this game is progressing? Because I want to listen to you regarding Test match cricket and the pressure that we're seeing being put on it because of the other formats. And since you played 134 Test matches, this format must be very dear to your heart. Do you think we need to put in a more effort in the Asian bloc? Because, the interest seemed to be just waning a little bit here, even in India, where every house was supposed to be full, whether it was T20 cricket one day or Test cricket. But now things are changing for the worse for Test cricket. What are your thoughts? I mean, do you feel that we're not doing enough regarding Test match cricket?
Well, I'm not. Well, yeah, I think it's a combination of factors, isn't it, Ramiz? I don't think you can use the word balance anymore because it's never going to be perfectly balanced, the formats against each other. It's all to do with revenue generation and the viability of each format in terms of the financial returns it gives the cricket boards. And so that affects their abilities to run those different formats and reinvest into the grassroots. For Test cricket, it's been a case where we are trying to do a lot, but then are we doing the right thing? And even despite doing all these things, will it really sustain that format as we know it now into the future? So this conversation, I think, will continue to happen over the next few years as well, because I don't know if there is one perfect answer or one measure or a few measures that we can take that will solve this problem. We all love this format. You do, I do. If you ask any current player, no matter if he earns millions in the IPL or not, the first thing they will say is that they all aspire to play Test cricket and they love Test cricket. It is the pinnacle of the game. If you ask fans around the world, over 80% of them will still say the same. We love this sport. We love this format, and Test cricket is for us the ultimate. But professing that love is one thing, converting that to having more fans in terms of coming to grounds and following Test cricket, that has always been the problem. And for players as well, Test cricket, in terms of them committing to playing more and more Test cricket, has taken a backseat because the pay that they receive for Test cricket is very low compared to other formats. So if boards consider Test cricket to be a premium, I think there should be a premium fee attached to a Test cricketer, and then that allows Test cricketers to actually commit for longer, the best players to commit for longer rather than retiring early or playing limited amounts of Test cricket so that they can play franchise cricket around the world. The other issue is...
My sort of question relating to this would be whether we're placing the product correctly. Because
yes,
you see, so that is the question, because this World Test Championship, rather than having it in staggered stages, couldn't it have been just one sort of longish window of 6 to 8 months where everything else stopped and we were just pumping in money and sort of converting the eyeballs to Test match cricket by just placing this a bit better?
Absolutely, because I was going to get to day-night test cricket was touted as a solution, and we saw crowds increase. We also saw the World Test Championship coming into being, which was great because that was pushed for a long, long time. But the World Test Championship is not promoted centrally by the ICC. The only aspect of the World Test Championship that is promoted is the final. So when you don't have a central body that considers this a benchmark tournament to push it out in terms of marketing from a central point, it then gets kind of fractured into home boards having to do all that work. And again, that doesn't really tie into the concept, like you said, of a World Test Championship. And also, we don't build up the profile of the World Test Championship and the players involved. You know, the greatest test players are not built up as heroes. They're not marketed to the public and the youngsters around the world as heroes, as they would be in the IPL. And there has to be a lot more effort that goes into the planning of these World Test Championships. And one of the things, like you said, is that while the World Test Championship is going on, you also have other pre-agreed FTP or Future Tours program matches going on as well that sometimes don't really have any relevance to the points table of the championship. So is it that you only play mandated test matches that fall within the World Test Championship and nothing else, so that test cricket becomes not just a premium product but also a rare product? So countries and spectators have to wait a while to see all these great teams come and play. Also, the extension of test match status to teams, you know, Afghanistan and Ireland came in, which is great. They really deserve to be there in those in you know, playing test cricket. But is it right to have them playing just 2 test matches a year, or one-off test match against the big countries? How are they going to improve? How are they going to learn? And are those matches really going to garner the spectator numbers in ground and on TV that they really deserve? So the fine-tuning phases of this needs to be looked at quite strongly, and boards need to really look at it together. Do they have a central fund? How do they have a central marketing fund where everyone contributes and the ICC maybe subsidizes it? So there are various options that countries can take, but they need to keep doing that in investing in test cricket, because otherwise test cricket will die. So whether it's 4 days or 5 days, it's a classification, but for cricketers to really pit themselves against other in the longer version, it has to be attractive to not just players, but mostly to spectators, because without spectators, Ramiz, the game dies. So it's high time that administrators and cricketers around the world started listening to what the spectators really want from test cricket as well.
Right, a little bit now about your career. In fact, a lot about your career, Sangha, because this show is about you. Who set you on your way to gaining brilliance or genius that you became as a batsman? You know, was it your dad, school, environment, club, or it's just the inbuilt mechanism that used to kick in every time you picked up that bat or went behind the stumps to keep?
I think it started with my father, and at home I had 3 other siblings. We were all encouraged to play sport and to play as many sports as possible, not just one. And then slowly with time, we all picked a particular sport. My brother played cricket. He's a very good off spinner, but after he saw my father coaching me and how technical and how obsessive my father was on you know, in terms of perfection, my brother said, "Well, thank you very much. This is not something I want to do after school. You just coach Kumar, and that's fine." Both my sisters played sport. My second sister, who's closest to me in age, was national champion in Sri Lanka when she was just 15 years old. And then she went on to play number 1 singles tennis for her university in America. So we all had this upbringing rooted in sport. But I was playing tennis till I was 16, and only then really seriously switched to cricket. So I was always competitive. I had that grounding. I had these wonderful coaches when I was young playing school cricket. Mr. Bertie Vijay Singh, Bernard Pereira, Sunil Fernando. And Sunil Fernando and Bernard Pereira they were the coaches I would go to. Even in my last year of international cricket, if I went to Kandy, my father would still take me to Mr. Sunil Fernando and get him to have a look at my technique. And he'll pick up any little thing that has changed over the last 20 plus years. He would pick it up immediately and say, oh, well, this has changed, let's have a look. So he'll give me 2 hours of throwdowns and get me on my way. So that kind of practice ethic and my father's kind of obsessive nature with excellence really drove me to fine tune my practice, because I wasn't the most talented cricketer, but I found a mechanism which really worked for me. So throughout my test career or my cricketing career, any format that I played, I worked on the basis that I had to change and adapt, whether it was technique, whether even some things that are some things that sometimes you're told never to change, like grip, stance, backlift, your trigger movements. I used to change all of these things, even from one match to the next, to try and find something to get me through to scoring runs. I never wanted to be stale. And I worked hard, Ramiz. I mean, you know it, right? There's no shortcut to getting to being the best that you can be at anything without hard work. So you have to work hard, be smart, and be open to change.
What amazes me about your career, Sangha, and Sachin's as well to a certain extent, is how well you adapted to the different pace of cricket, of this game of batting, because you started off as a bit of an old school kind of a batsman where you had to dig in, play along the ground, get those runs, get tough runs, feel the confidence, feel your presence at the crease, give yourself a bit of confidence and a high. But then the game sped away from the likes of you and Sachin. One felt that, you become a bit of an old-timer kind of a situation and an individual. But the great thing about you is that how well you develop your skills, keeping in mind the pace of the game, which was brilliant.
I mean, I remember when I first started and I was batting, I started at number 5. I actually batted from number 1 till number 9 in international cricket for Sri Lanka. But I remember when I finally scored enough runs to cement my place at number 3, in one-day cricket, my duty was to go out there and bat till the 45th over and not get out. Everyone else would bat around me. That was my role. So you don't go beyond your role. I remember when we used to chase runs, we used to say, oh, if it goes above 6, it's going to be so difficult. And then, 10 years later, you're talking to each other. If you don't get it above 10, we are fine. We'll chase it down. Then suddenly go, you're 14 off the over. Yeah, we'll be okay. You had Mahendra Singh Dhoni coming and scoring 20 in an over. Yeah, it's fine. So the important thing is to realize that I don't think any batsman can ever bat the same way year in, year out for an entire career. There will be certain changes they will be forced to make. Sometimes it's better to be proactive than to be backed into a corner before you make those changes. So that was more my attitude. Don't wait until you get stale. Anticipate what's going to happen and try and be as innovative as possible while being effective. So there were certain strokes I could play. There were certain strokes I had to learn completely anew. And there were certain strokes I never really played at all or much of. But then I had to pick and choose at different times, different formats, different situations. I had to have those options. And you see now players like Virat Kohli, A.B. de Villiers, players like that around the world, Stephen Smith. Every time they go out, they have an option that allows them to score in any given situation. So that was the mindset that allowed probably all of us who played in quite a few different eras of evolution of cricket. It helped us to keep up and be effective. Because at the end of the day, Ramiz, that's what counts, isn't it? It's not how you look. It's effectiveness that counts.
Sanga, the other thing is batting at number 3. I mean, it's a great record. The best batting at number 3 ever in cricket history, and you have that seat. What made you sort of become such a great player at number 3?
I really don't know whether I have an answer to that, Ramiz. I mean, I started at number 5 in Test cricket and was given the opportunity in my third Test to bat at number 3. And I always enjoyed playing fast bowling. I enjoyed it much more than spin. It's probably because the school I went to, Trinity College, is up in Kandy. It rains quite a lot. So every time we played, the wicket was green and damp. And so we faced a lot of fast bowling at school cricket. And we also grew up playing on matting. So that, it really helped you with your back foot play, learning to play an awkward bounce. And I think that really helped me to come into my own at number 3. And number 3 is a situation, is a funny position. Everyone says, oh, it's almost the same as opening, but it isn't really.
No.
And it allows you to kind of not dominate, but kind of dictate the pace of play at times, to come in and create situations from that which you find yourself in. So I think I was very lucky to have that opportunity to bat there. And in Test cricket, I never really backed down from that. And I really relished the opportunity to go out there and face up to new balls or to fast bowlers. And I remember, I used to go through different phases. Brett Lee or Mitchell Johnson or someone of that sort bowling to me, I started batting inside my crease, both feet inside my crease.
Right.
But funnily, where I faced Shoaib, I found that one of the times I did really well, most of the times I did well against Shoaib, was if I batted outside my crease or closer to the bowler. So I used to really think, whether you bat at number 3 or any position, if you're not open to recognizing those changes that you have to make, it's really difficult to keep up. So with batting at number 3, all I did was watch the ball, be balanced, and bat to the situation. But I always batted to score runs, never for time, always for runs.
Yeah, brilliant thinking and mindset. Now, you batted a fair deal with Mahela as well. You hold a world record partnership as well. And they say you sort of start learning about that individual also, what about him as a person. And so with Mahela, obviously, he was a hard nut to crack as well. He was as determined as you. I mean, he's very focused. I mean, tell us a little bit about that partnership and how was it batting alongside Mahela?
Well, you asked the earlier question about how I evolved as a batsman through different formats. And one of the reasons I did was the influence of batsmen like Mahela, like Sanat Jayasuriya, T.M. Dilshan, and all these host of other batsmen I had around me who were very different. And I think Asian teams were the only ones at that time who had that kind of a mishmash of very, very different players who could play every format in a very different way. So Mahela I've known him since I was about 15, was one of those players, if you saw him at 15, you knew he was going to become a world great. The same technique, the grace, the elegance with which he played, and this hunger for runs. And when I got into the team, he was already vice captain. He played about 2.5 years of international cricket before I came into the team. And because we've known each other and because we had kind of a similar ideology in terms of how we approach cricket, we kind of gravitated towards each other. And we had a host of other players who were in our own age group. So we spent a lot of time together. We talked a lot about the game. And when we batted as well, that relationship really helped because I knew how he batted and how he thought. He knew the same of me. And we'd kind of revel in different situations. There were some that I would allow him to go and, kind of put pressure back on the bowlers or absorb pressure. And I would do the reverse in situations that really helped me. And that was one of the reasons that I think that partnership flourished. And it grew in terms of friendship, in terms of run scoring, and even now beyond the field in a lot of our business ventures, we are partners as well. So it's really, really helped. And I think that's one of the beauties of the game, the friendships that you make on the field, it continues for years down the line, whether you've retired or not.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of unorthodoxy in that dressing room as well. When you and Mahela were playing, I mean, there was MURALITHARAN who was sensational and you kept wickets to MUTTIAH. I mean, how difficult was he to pick? And tell us a bit about Murali. I mean, was he a difficult character? Was he different? I mean, when the pressure was on him, how did he reacted to it? Stuff like that.
Well, Murali on the field and Murali as a person off it are completely two different animals. I mean, off the field, he's one of the nicest, most generous people you'll ever meet. He's got a great heart. On the field, he can be the most annoying cricketer you ever play with. He's still a champion. He's still a great friend on the field. But he has, again, he's meticulous with his field settings, his expectations, his attitude. And even though he's very harsh on us, with the opposition, he's always smiling. He's always smiling. He's always joking. And we used to get really annoyed. I said, why don't you treat us the same way, Murali? But see, I'll tell you a story about Murali. Once I was at practice with him, and this is his routine every day. He comes in, he does his warm-up, play a bit of football, goes in, he chooses a ball, and then he does some spot bowling. Then he finishes his spot bowling and comes immediately into the net and keeps bowling for hours. And until the coach tells him to stop, he doesn't stop. And even afterwards, sometimes you go and do more spot bowling. So I used to go up to him and say, listen, I said, what is this, right? I said, you're the best spin bowler to play this game. You're 600 wickets plus at that time. You know, what are you doing practicing like this? What's the use of this? And he told me, he said, Sangha, it's not my turn or my dusra or any of these other things that people say that I can do that helps me. What helps me is my confidence that I can run in with my eyes closed and bowl the ball exactly where I want to bowl it. And he said, the only way I can get that confidence is through training. If I don't do this, my turn, my dusra will have no effect. So this is my basic, this is what gets me the wickets. And this is what I'm going to do. So it's a great lesson for me in my work ethic as well. And Murali was a champion. Him and Vasi, that combination.
Yeah. Minda Vas was a great bowler as well. On those dead pitches, get that ball back into you if you're a right-hander. Brilliant arc.
I mean, if Murali had a couple more fast bowlers like Vasi who could get him breakthroughs, Murali didn't have to then bowl to the top order, the middle order, and the lower order. He could have just picked and chosen smaller spells, become more effective, and probably taken a lot more wickets as well. Yeah.
So, Sangha, I mean, as looking at your career, 2011 to 2014, do you think you'd mark it as your best cricketing years?
Probably.
Because you won a lot of awards, you know, ICC Cricketer of the Year, and you know, so many international awards you won, and the record was sensational as well during that period.
Yeah, I think you, in a batsman's career, I think you always come to an age where you suddenly, you know more about yourself as a person than the technique of batting. And I think that is when you really, that combination is what really gets you improving rapidly and scoring a lot more runs and becoming supremely confident in your ability. A lot of the time, one without the other can only get you through to a short period of time. And your performances will also spike severely up and down. You'll have these high peaks and these very low troughs, which you don't want to have as a consistent player. You want to have good days, then excellent days, and once in a while, a bad day here and there. So I think that to me was a great period of self-discovery. And then beyond that 2009-10 period, it really allowed me to be a lot freer, change up my mindset. I had enough runs in the bank to really change up my game and invest in a few failures to actually even, you know, change as a batsman and even become, more effective in terms of run scoring. So that really helped me, Ramiz, knowing and developing and changing as a person.
Fastest to 8,000 test match runs, 9,000 test match runs, 10,000 test match runs, 11,000 test match runs. Sangha, I mean, you blew everyone else completely out and off. Was this, I mean, did you set yourself out to outnumber, outscore, outdo the rest of the cast? Was it something in the back of your mind that I'm going to be the best?
It's a funny thing, right? You don't want to admit it, but you know, you always think of milestones, right? I always don't believe any player who tells me I don't think of milestones. Everyone does. And everyone's very, very competitive. You're competitive against your opposition, and you're competitive within your team as well. You want to be the best at what
Sure.
you do.
Sure.
So we fed off each other, and everyone in our dressing room had that attitude. We didn't have destructive egos, but we all had pride and ego to a level that allowed us to feed positively off each other. And when I joined the dressing room, I was lucky enough, like to have Mahela, Tilan Samaravira, Mavanatha Patusa, all of these people who spoke a lot about milestones, who spoke about you need to score a minimum of 20 test hundreds. You need to score 10,000 runs. You know, these are your targets. While you do that, you've got to win games, yes, but these are also personal targets. So from the start, I had that. And then when you get there to 20 hundreds, then you go, okay, let's move the goalposts. Yeah. Let's go for 25, 30. From there, what do we do? So it was always inbred in our dressing room to kind of pursue those goals, pursue those milestones, and that they were important in both the victory of the team and your development as a batsman and having your name in the record books. So it was a combination. I was lucky to have that influence.
Record books, 11 double hundreds. I mean, I think one shot to Donald Braidman, the next best in the business. I mean, that is sensational. I mean, and you started off, I think, getting a double hundred here in Lahore, I think it was. Was that your first 100 in the Asian Test Championship?
Yeah, that was my first double hundred. I kept wickets. It was a green seamer to start off with. Pakistan batted first. I think they got 260 or something like that. And then I had just come off keeping wickets, and I was changing from my keeping pads into my batting wides. When first ball of a batting innings, I think Mavanatha Pathu hooked Waqar Younis to find leg. And I had to rush. I had to get my thigh pad on, all of this stuff, and run outside. And I had Waqar Younis, Shoaib Akhtar, Abdul Razak, and Mohammed Sami. And I was thinking, what am I doing here? But it was again, the half an hour or something that I batted. Everything was working well. Came back the next morning, and everything just continued to flow. So I didn't really question anything, or I didn't really try to look too hard at anything. I just said, okay, let's go with the flow here. But I found that once you scored your first and your second, double hundreds, you kind of understood the mechanism. And there's always a case of the first 100 I found was always the harder one. And then I just rinsed and repeated that technique without looking at the scoreboard to my 150 and beyond. So I had a very trusted formula that worked for me. And I would switch tempo in my innings up and down. So from 60 to 70, I would try and the attack. When I was in my late 80s, or if I was a shot away from 100, I would look to actually see, can I get there with one shot? Is it possible? I mean, 6 would be the last option. That's not. But if it's a boundary, if there's a gap in the field, I would suddenly look to see, okay, how do I capitalize here? If there's a part-time bowler on, I would actually take the risk to get about 15, 16 runs off him or more in a couple of overs. So just to try and lessen fatigue in terms of my concentration and increase my run-making tempo. So it really worked for me.
Oh, absolutely, it did. Now, talking of left-handers, Sangha, you must have your own favorites. I mean, let's hear about them. A couple of names that you really admired.
Well, if you say left-handers, there's nothing that you don't need to go further than Brian Charles Lara. I mean, I love Sir Vivian Richards, but the day Brian Lara came along, I had to make a choice, and I thought, okay, let's give them equal place. But Brian's Brian, right? I mean, Sir Viv's incredible, and Brian, the things he did as well was unbelievable.
That series, Sangha, I was doing commentary, that series that he had against Sri Lanka. It was some of the most fabulous batting against spin and against Murali. I think Murali picked up around 30 wickets. You beat West Indies 3-0 in that series, and Brian Lara got 500 plus runs in that series, and he's hitting Murali against the spin. Was that the best batting that you ever saw? Yeah. Was that the best batting that you ever saw against Murali, against spin, Sangha?
Absolutely. I mean, it was just incredible keeping and to that kind of dominance. When everyone else around him was failing, he actually had to monopolize the strike against Murali so that the other batsmen wouldn't get out too early. And he did all of that on about 2.5 hours of sleep a night. So it was it was even more impressive, Ramiz. But Aravinda De Silva was another amazing batsman. I mean, I saw Aravinda develop as a batsman just watching old videos, and I was lucky to play with him as a youngster at NCC.
Sure.
And he was one of the first batsmen to ever give me one of the most important batting advice that I've ever received, which is in terms of my bottom hand grip and my head position in terms of watching the ball and not allowing my eye level to go up and down. And he told me these two little tidbits of wisdom at the side nets at the NCC one day, and incredible how it changed my game and allowed me to become a better player. So, and Aravinda again, he was again one of those players who could do things us mere mortals could never even think of doing. So, you know, those three batsmen to me, incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and the bowlers, I mean, you played a lot of quality bowlers, Sangha. I mean, how would you rate some of the guys that you played?
Well, two of the bowlers I played with in terms of Murali and Vas, incredible. I mean, I can't go beyond them in terms of grit, quality, determination, and effectiveness. Absolute greats of the game. Rangana Herat, I played with, again, incredible. Lasith Malinga in every format of the game when he was fit was hard. But internationally, Wasim Akram, the little I faced of him, was terrifying. Not because he was extraordinarily quick, but the skill he had was incredible. Graham Swan was very difficult for me as a left-hander. Zahir Khan, incredible fast bowler to me. You know, beautiful rhythm, highly skilled. Mohammad Asif, I would rate him as one of the best fast bowlers with a new ball that I've ever played. If he had a new ball in his hand, it didn't matter whether there was grass on the pitch or it was absolutely dead flat. He could make that ball talk. So I found
that nagging link where you could neither be forward nor back.
And every ball, Ramiz, did something.
Yeah.
If it didn't do anything in there, it did something off the pitch. And you always thought, oh, you're right there. Oh, that's a drive. And suddenly it's not there. And you're like, okay, why did I just do that? So there were so many great bowlers like that. Shane Warne was extremely difficult when the ball started turning. Very smart bowler. So many around the world like that.
Yeah, and last couple of questions now, Sangha. This fixing issue is once again, you know, raising its ugly head, especially here in Pakistan. And, you know, somebody gave me the numbers. 7% of Pakistan test players have either been censured, fined or jailed for fixing, the most for any country. Now, it's an embarrassing stat, but we've got to face it. And so your thoughts on how to cap it, how to put a lid on this? I mean, do you have a plan? Do you have your thoughts regarding fixing and how we can get rid of it? Can we ever get rid of it?
I'm not sure whether we can ever get rid of it, because to get rid of it, you really need so many different things to fall into place. And one of the most important things is the ability of the player to say no. Right. It doesn't mean that it's always a player's fault in terms of how he got into that situation, but ultimately you have power over the decisions that you make, and your ability to say yes or no at inception when you know something is not right is absolutely important. The other thing is awareness and having a culture in both age group cricket, in international cricket, and in a dressing room that allows for freedom of opinion and for open, honest communication, where older players and younger players interact on an equal footing and they're able to respect each other and have mutual respect, but talk about important issues that require action. You need to set examples as well. Education from a very young age is essential. And to have that ability of players to trust the system, trust their dressing room, trust the senior players, trust administrators, to understand that the system is there to help you and to save you from situations like this is important. I think many years ago, the system was there almost in terms of trying to catch players out rather than empowering them to make the right decision. I think with Alex Marshall at the head of the ICC now, anti-corruption unit now, things have drastically changed. He's been very open with players. He's encouraged all his entire team to go out to players and ensure that the players understand that trust is a two-way street, and that if they trust the anti-corruption units, the local corruption units that are set up by cricket boards, that there are opportunities for players to be really, in terms of security, feel really safe, that they are being looked after and their best interests are being looked after. It's a really tough thing. The other thing is also, I think the PCA in England, their research shows that approachers come during the early years of a cricketer's career or when they're just nearing retirement. So to have longer term contracts, to have parity of pay when it comes to international cricketers and age group cricket and first class cricket, all these are very important to ensuring that players feel financially secure, that they don't have to say yes to a nefarious way of earning money rather than plying that honest trade. Especially when you're at the end of your career, to have educational programs and transitioning programs that allow cricketers to confidently move into a new era of their lives so that they don't feel insecure or scared of their financial security in the future, that they again have to resort to saying yes to corrupt approaches. So it has to be a multi-pronged approach. It's sometimes easy to point the finger at a player and say it's all his fault, but you really have to analyze why that situation came about. You can have harsher penalties, you can have life bans, you can have all of that, Ramiz, but at the end of the day, we have to create an environment that encourages players and ensures that they're secure enough in aspects of their lives that they don't succumb to corrupt approaches. Players will still do it, then those players will get punished and censured. And hopefully together, I think we can root out this problem from cricket, because it is something that will devastate this game and continue to affect the public confidence. And if that happens again, the game suffers.
Absolutely right. Now, lastly, Sangha, you played so many memorable innings. Your best that you still remember?
I think the two I will say. T20 cricket, I think one of my best innings was the 50 I scored in the final in 2014 that helped us win. After having quite a bad tournament with the bat. The other is the 98 I scored at Centurion in my first international tour in terms of away from home in South Africa. That really kind of, up till that innings, I thought I wasn't good enough to play Test cricket. After that 98 against really torrid fast bowlers, I kind of thought to myself, yeah, maybe I can do this. So those two innings for me are very significant.
Yeah, it's quite amazing and strange in a way that, you know, you may have scored 11 double hundreds and 38 test match hundreds, yet some of the innings that made the game for your team and convince you of your prowess as a top quality player does it for you. So it's not always your double hundred or a triple hundred that you scored, but little efforts that won your team the game. And the moment, you know, the bigger the stage, the better the performance, you know, that scenario sits with you for the rest of your life. So extremely well done, Sangha. I mean, there are 10,000 other things to talk about your career because it's littered with glorious and sensational stats. And thank you for doing this in COVID times. Stay safe, stay at home, and hope that cricket will resume shortly, quickly, and we'll meet again.
Thank you very much, Ramiz. Stay safe. Love to your family. And we'll see you on the other side of this.
Absolutely. Brilliant, boss. Thank you so much, mate. Thanks.
God bless. Bye.